You think I knit only other people's patterns and designs? Well, you're actually wrong. Hi, Knitting Kindred, my name is Tabby, and I'm here today to talk about one of my own, first ever designs. I knitted cardigan. So, where this project started was back in 2018. I decided I wanted to knit myself a blanket because I am not a quilter, and I didn't want to quilt a blanket, so I was going to knit a blanket. So I started knitting all these garter squares. And I think I decided I wanted like a big lap size blanket, and I was going to take quite a few of these squares to knit this blanket. And I got yarn especially for this blanket. I was going with pinks and purples because they're colors, and I managed to knit quite a few different little squares. And then they sat around for a while before I had enough money to buy more yarn to go with this blanket, or I had enough seam to knit more squares. And then I decided that it was going to take forever to knit these squares. And I started this other blanket, which you start out in the middle, you knit a square and you keep knitting until it's big enough. And this is fingering weight yarn, and I have all these scraps from socks, so it's going to work nicely. And then you just keep knitting it until it grows. And I always have a ton of fingering weight scraps left over, including from the sweater. And the other one, I think, it's like a DK weight or a worsted weight. So I decided that rather than taking those squares and making them into a blanket, I'd make them into a cardigan. And kind of the style of the cardigan that Harry Styles wore for his rehearsal that was really popular, that kind of gave me the same idea. So I sewed all my squares that I had made into two fronts. So let me give you some details on this. I cannot tell you how many squares I made, but I will also link my project page on Ravelry for this and might give you more details. So, yeah, I needed 130 squares. So some of the yarn is, this is Retold Yarns and Ladies Don't Start Fights. The blue is Windex. This is Kayla's Lab. This is Moonstone Dye Works. Yeah, so the light purple is Moonstone Dye Works and the dark purple is Kayla's Lab. And they're all indie dyed yarns, except for the main, except for this one here, which is Premier DK, which is, you know, a standard big industry brand. So, I wound up knitting my squares in size 4 somehow. And then I was knitting my cardigan, and I realized that it was the wrong size needle, so I pulled everything out. I think I had started knitting the back, which I'll take off and show you. And so that was frustrating that I found out that I was using the wrong size needles. So on the back, I used a strip of squares at the upper back. The Premier DK is probably a little more floppy than I would like. So I sewed these squares across the back, and then I knit this little piece here, and then I knit the back. Also knit ribs on to sew to the bottom. So I generally really don't like sewing knitting together, but that's what I did for this project. I knit it all on flat needles and then sewed it all together. So for the back, I cast on 111 stitches. It's very oversized and very floppy. It's not like the most perfect thing I've ever made, because again, I was kind of making it along as I went up. So there's some, you know, funky bits to it, and it's not the most structured thing ever. I did have a bit of blue left, and that's why I wanted to put it in here at the cuffs to tie it into the blue on the back. So I think this project took me a while because I wasn't working on it consistently, but I also wanted like the nice balloon cuff here, so I did the rib, and then I think I knit the front back of every stitch so that I would have that nice puff it would come into a narrow cuff. So a lot of it, I've never done garment construction on my own before, and so just making some things up. I did moss stitch for the texture because I knew that the squares were garter, and garter's not my favorite, so I thought maybe I'd just do moss stitch as a nice texture for the rest of the body, for the sleeves and the back. The rib is a 3x3 rib for them, and like this part is kind of weird, how far it goes back into my shoulders, because the way I just unraveled half of a square to make a neckline. So it's not perfect again, but it is kind of a funky piece. I don't know how much wear I'll get out of it because right now it's still kind of warm to be wearing a cardigan. But when the time does get, when the weather does get cooler, I'm excited to like wear it with my overalls. Because it's a nice, cozy, like this is DK, I think. This might be a thicker yarn, but it's nice and warm and cozy. So it will keep me warm wherever I wear it. And it's in my favorite colors. I do like blue too. So for this construction of this, I basically sewed all the front pieces together, sewed the rib, knitted the back pieces, sewed the back pieces together, joined them at the shoulders, and then I knitted the sleeves and sewed it so it was the sleeves, so that it was kind of like in that cross kind of construction. And then I folded it over and sewed up this piece here. I had knitted my sleeves too long, so I did have to rip them back quite a bit, and undo the sleeves and then redo them so they weren't like, okay, they're still a little long, but they were really like folded over quite a bit because I think I had like an inch or two, maybe 3 inches more than I needed in sleeve, and I was like, this isn't gonna be as wearable, so I just ripped it back. So I just ripped the sleeves back until I thought they were a good length. So it was a lot of trial and error in making the sweater. I did, after I sewed up the side seam, I picked up stitches around the neck and knit the neckband. So I knit the rib up to here, and then I picked up on both sides, and then I picked up stitches from here around the neck, and then I sewed them together at that point so that it would lay nicely. I felt like if I just picked up all the stitches around the neck in one go, it would maybe warp weirdly or didn't lay flat. I did that kind of technique in my cha-cha cardigan, so I thought it would work in this cardigan. Just the construction on some different things I also borrowed from making my bubble stitch cardigan. I think it was the same, like sewing the sleeves on and then sewing up this way, that I kind of followed from that. And then doing the neckband, I followed from the cha-cha. So altogether, I have a fun and unique piece that no one else is going to have. I will not be releasing a pattern, but if you kind of can follow my notes and guess, then you're welcome to make your own. I don't think my notes are super clear and super easy to follow, but maybe you could find the Harry Style cardigan. That would probably be easier to follow. I think that one's more oversized as well. I like things oversized, but not like massively oversized. I know some people really like big, oversized, chunky things, and I like them a little bit oversized, but not too much. I also like snug things, but this is a little too snug. You can watch my other video on this sweater, but until next time, I hope you enjoy autumn and your cardigans and a nice cup of tea or coffee if you're a coffee drinker, and just knitting on your projects. Fall is a great time to be knitting on sweaters and cardigans and blankets. So enjoy your knitting, and until next time, have a great day.